Welcome back to Become a Calm Mama. I'm your host. I'm Darlene Childress. I'm a life and parenting coach. And over the last couple of weeks on the podcast, we've been talking about connection. So in the connected parenting process, there are 4 pillars. The first is calm. That's all about you and your ability to emotionally regulate. And the tool we use in calm is called the calm break. There's been a lot of episodes on how to emotionally regulate yourself and how to take a calm break. Then I've been talking lately about connect, which is the second pillar of the connected parenting process. And that is your emotionally coaching your kids, connecting with them in order to help them connect with themselves. When I think about the connection pillar in the connected parenting process, I really think about how important it is to help your child connect their behavior with what's going on inside of them. I think about connection not so much as how you connect with your kid so that you have a good relationship with them. In my mind, that's a byproduct of emotionally coaching your child, creating a space of emotional safety, helping them manage their feelings, teaching them skills to regulate that emotion. And when you do that and you are validating and kind and compassionate, a byproduct of that is that your child and you have a good relationship. They feel safe, they feel seen, they feel soothed by you. But how do you actually do that connection? How do you actually sit with a child who is emotionally dysregulated or is just struggling with something or has a behavior that's out of bounds? What are the practical, actual things you say and do as a parent in order to create that emotionally safe environment, to teach them to regulate and help them become an emotionally healthy person? That is my job as your parenting coach, as your guide in this process, is to help you know what to do and say. So when you have a child who's upset or that you have a behavior that's out of bounds, most of you have learned that you're supposed to validate their emotion, right? And you're like, oh, you're sad. Mostly we know how to validate sad, or maybe we can validate angry. But for the most part, a lot of us don't know what to do after we validate that emotion. And it can be really confusing. So with the connection tool that I taught a couple weeks ago, so if you haven't listened to that episode, go back and listen to it. I'll review it here. You really are narrating what you are seeing on the outside. You're narrating the behavior and the circumstance. You're painting a picture for your child to kind of witness themselves. You are their witness. You're watching how they're acting. You're trying to be neutral about it, not judging it or making it mean anything. That's, you staying emotionally regulated. And then you narrating what you can see on the outside and then naming the emotion or the needs that your child has on the inside. So your job in connected parenting is to help connect the dots between what's going on the outside and what's going on the inside, and then validating what's going on the inside. So we validate the emotion that's driving the behavior while also setting a limit around the behavior. So let me give you an example. A simple one, right? You have a kid who gets in the car after school and starts to hit their younger sibling or even their older sibling, or they start stealing their snack, or they start complaining about needing the radio louder or a certain song or some kind of behavior. And you see that behavior, and most of our instinct at first is to tell the child, stop it. Don't do that. That's not okay, right? And that makes perfect sense that you would want to correct that behavior. But correcting before connecting makes it really hard for your child to pivot towards the new behavior. And a lot of times when we just say stop it, they don't know what to do instead. So instead of just correcting or telling them to stop, which is a natural parenting, instinct, I want you to say, hey, I see you, grabbing your brother's snack. I wonder if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed from your day. Or, oh, I hear you asking for this certain radio station. How old am I? I hear you asking for that song, or you want me to turn the radio up, or you want me to turn it down. I wonder if you're feeling a little bit bored or overwhelmed or frustrated. You're making a guess to the feeling, and it doesn't have to be necessarily accurate. It's not like if you don't name the emotion, it won't work. Or, what does work mean? Work means that they won't emotionally regulate. It's just your attempt to recognize that the reason they're behaving that way is because they have something going on inside. So with the connection tool, we're noticing, we're narrating, we're naming, we're validating the emotion. So saying, hey, it makes sense that, you get out of school, you're feeling a little tired, you're feeling overwhelmed, you're hungry, you're grumpy. That all makes sense. And it's not okay for you to grab your brother's snack. Then we regulate. So it's like you offer alternatives. I'm not going to let you take your brother's snack, but what can you do instead? Or, can you say, Mommy, can I have a snack, please? Or you can set a limit, or you can say, I'm going to let everybody have snack once everyone is calm. So right now we're going to take 3 deep breaths, or we're going to do a squeeze and release with our hands. So you learn different regulation strategies, and you can learn those on the podcast, and giving your kids tools to teach them how to manage their feelings in more appropriate ways. So we do that through recognizing that they have a behavior because of some sort of unmet need or emotion or, negative thought spiral they're in, whatever is going on inside. That's what they need help with. They need new ways to cope and communicate those feelings or those thoughts or those needs in ways that work. So we're validating the emotion while also setting a boundary around the behavior and giving an alternative or setting a limit of you can have a snack once you are able to sit quietly and ask politely, or try again. I'm happy to let you listen to the song that you want to listen to as long as you say, Mommy, can you turn this song on? And then when your child either keeps the limit or not, that's just information for you of how dysregulated they are. Regulating emotion is a tricky thing. It's hard for all of us. It's one of the main purposes of this podcast is become a calm mama. It's about how to help you regulate your emotion. We always do that through the body, through some sort of movement or some sort of, discharging the emotion that's stuck inside of us and allowing it to release through our hands, through our mouth, through our voice. Whenever your child is misbehaving or they're using their mouth, like they're being, you're stupid, that's dumb, shut up, whatever they're saying. It's their best attempt to get their emotion and their need met, like to move that emotion out of their body. And the way that they're doing it is not a good strategy because it hurts other people. But it's a good strategy for them because it's calming them. They're doing their best. So I'm just kind of reinforcing that people behave the way they behave because they have their internal world is something that they're struggling to cope with. Just like you. You are not a bad person if you yell at your kids. You are yelling at your kids because you are overwhelmed. You are feeling a lot of emotion or frustration or, cognitive fatigue, right? Mental fatigue from being a parent, and it's coming out through your body, through the way that you're expressing yourself. And there are always healthier ways than yelling. There's healthier ways than screaming at your parents. There's healthier ways than grabbing snacks from your sibling. There's healthier ways than demanding to get what you want. So your job as a parent is to recognize and connect your child to themselves. Like, hey, you're behaving this way because something's going on inside. Here's another way to get what you need met. That's the connection tool in a nutshell. And it takes practice, honestly, because first of all, our most of the time, our mindset is about like judging behavior. Like we, especially as parents, you look at behavior and you're like, uh-oh, I got to, get this kid to stop acting that way. Like that's not okay, right? That's our first instinct. And I'm teaching you to overcome that paradigm that you have, that your job is to like correct behavior in the middle of the behavior. Instead, changing your lens from judge to compassionate witness and looking at the behavior from a place of like, what could be going on under here? So just asking your question of like being curious and looking at what could be going on inside, it will help you shift your approach to your child. Then when you go to have a conversation with them, they are not in as a defensive space. You're not activating their nervous system even more. Instead, you're coming in as a regulated adult and you're helping calm their nervous system so that they can do their better thinking. Like I said, something that takes time because you have to learn to reframe the way you look at the behavior in the first place and then get better at making those guesses. So really, I always think about like how to do this well is looking at your child's behavior and thinking about how you might feel if you were in that circumstance. Like I think about it, okay, for bedtime. How would I feel if I was 4 years old, 7 years old, and my favorite thing in the world is my sibling, my parent, my toys, daytime, right? Running around, moving my body. Those are my favorite things. And then at bedtime, I lose all of my favorite things. It's dark. I don't get to move my body. I don't get to play with my toys. I don't get to play with my siblings. And I don't get to be with my parents. It's pretty hard. So I think if we narrate that for our child and we say, yes, that makes sense that you would want to keep getting up out of bed or calling to me or asking me not to leave the room. I hear you. Like that, of course. But bedtime is your job and you're going to be figuring out how to fall asleep. And so what can I do to help you feel better within this circumstance? It is bedtime. So what do you need? If you can't be jumping out of bed, what do you need instead? If you can't be calling out to mommy, what can you do? And parents often have a lot of trouble thinking about, well, what can they do instead? They can hold up a stuffed animal. They can have a nightlight. They can sing a song. They can, cover themselves with a heavy blanket. They can, you can put a little scrunchie on their wrist of like a hair tie of yourself. And then you say, okay, you can hold this scrunchie and think of mommy when we're separated. So you're doing anything you can to help them learn to self-soothe. But we have to start from the place of like, yes, this would be hard. This is a hard situation. The feelings you have are valid, and giving them the responsibility to figure out better ways to cope with that feeling and in the circumstance that they're in. I think about going to school. Even if you go to school in the best circumstance, think about yourself going to work or going to doing something that is somewhat taxing, how you might delay. You might drag your feet a little bit. You wake up and you're kind of in a dreadful state. And we think about children and we're like, well, no, they should be happy all the time. No, they're people. They have all sorts of emotions and they're not good at communicating or being even aware of their emotion. So when we think about our children and the behaviors that often happen at bedtime. They often happen before school. They often happen at homework time. They often happen at transitions after school. And a lot of the emotion is dropped onto the sibling. So we think about these times of day that are really hard for our kids. And instead of coming at it like, be better, kid, like get it together, we want to connect with them and narrate the circumstance, narrate the struggle, narrate their strategy. So that narration piece is really important because we're talking through why it's hard, what's happening that's challenging. So they get in the car after school and they start punching each other. I had 2 little boys. They were constantly like dysregulated after school. when we start to talk about this transition, I say, of course, when you get out of school, you both want to tell me all your stories. You're a little bit tired. You have a lot on your mind. That you're hungry. Like there's physical things going on. There's emotional needs. So this is a tricky time for both of you, and that makes sense because you have competing needs. One of you wants to be quiet. One of you wants to talk a lot. One of you wants loud music. One of you wants quiet music. You both are trying to cope with that transition from school to home. And that makes sense that it would be hard. Instead, here's what you can do. So when I talk about regulating, you can give them tools in advance of how you want to regulate. You can give them tools in the midst of the moment if they're open to listening. Sometimes if they're in a huge meltdown or big feeling cycle, you doing all of this in your head. You're narrating, you're naming, you're validating, and you're coming up with ideas to regulate their emotions in ways that are silent, because for a lot of kids, if you start talking while they're in a big feeling cycle, it is extremely triggering, right? They get like, stop talking to me, be quiet. They get really upset. So that's good. That's attunement for you to realize like, oh, probably don't need to be talking to this person. But that doesn't mean that you emotionally cut them off and you just, fine, I'm not going to talk to you, and you shut them out. That feels like an abandonment to them. It feels like a rejection, and then they're out on their own to regulate their emotion. So staying present in that compassionate or neutral space while recognizing this is a kid who's having a hard time. I love that phrase in parent education. It's like, they're not giving me a hard time, they're having a hard time. Just thinking that thought can be really calming for you. And when you're calm and you're a regulated adult and you're in a space of compassion or neutrality, your child's nervous system kind of starts to resonate with that and it starts to regulate. When I say your child's borrowing your nervous system, that's what I'm talking about. And if you're in an activated state, they're going to be in an activated state. Well, they don't have to be. It's not always true, but they are looking to co-regulate, especially children. They want to be supported and be in the same emotional energy as the emotions around them. And you get to be the leader in your family and lead the emotional energy in your family. I don't want to put pressure on you, but it is a reality that you are the adult. And it is your job to be the calm one. We often think that our kids should be calm, and we don't give them enough grace to be children. Their nervous systems fire in a different way. They're immature. They activate for intent for no reason, and it's a reason for them, but it doesn't seem legitimate to us. And then they kind of go really, really, really high, and then they go really low, and they play really big, and they're really loud. Like everything about children is extreme, and that's because they're immature. Their emotional regulation is immature. Their bodies are immature. Everything is immature, and so their language, all of it, right? They're children, and so we are supposed to be the mature ones. Your job is to be present in that emotional energy, that connected space, narrating what's going on for your kid, naming the emotion, validating it, and then regulating. Now, again, people are like always confused, like what can they do? You think about what they want to do. Like if they want to scream really loud, is there a way that they can regulate by screaming in a way that works for everybody? If they want to be hitting or being physical, is there a way that they can be physical in, that doesn't bother anybody? If you can look at your child's behavior and their body and what they're doing and see that as like, okay, this is their best attempt to get calm. Let me think about how they can do that exact same thing in a way that works better for everybody else. A way that is within a boundary. Like, so you would say, you can't hit your brother, but you can hit this pillow. You can push against mommy's hands. You can squeeze my hands really hard. You can, I'm happy to give you a bite of this sandwich as long as you jump up and down 5 times. Being creative is hard if you're activated, but coming to ideas of ways that your kids can regulate their nervous system, move their bodies, and process that emotion through their body in a bunch of different ways. They can do jumping jacks. They can drink a glass of water. They can wash their hands. They can do like a shimmy shake, where you just like start with your hands in the air and you just shake your whole body all the way down. They can, I used to love to do, when my kids were like 5 or 6, I would hold my hands up and they would put their hands on mine. We'd stand staring at each other. And then I'd say, push as hard as you can. Push, 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 push. And they'd push against me. And I'm in a braced position so they could push against me and, wouldn't knock me over because I'm ready for it. Anything you can think about compression, like putting blankets on top of you, rolling you up in a blanket if you're at home, if even like a pattern, like a rhythmic pattern, stomping 1 foot, 2 feet, jump up and down, like you can do different movements. So I'm giving you a bunch of ideas just so you can kind of start thinking like, how does somebody calm their activated nervous system? And primarily that is through relationship and rhythm with the body, and sometimes dopamine. So sometimes you can give the brain a little task. Like, that's why limits are really good. Oh, listen, do you want to play with us? You can play here as long as you are not hitting. Why don't you go take your toy, put it on the shelf and come back, and then you can play with us. So you give a little limit and a boundary and a little task, and the child's brain will be like, whoa, and hopefully they can go take their toy, put it on the counter, come back over, and then they're regulated. You're moving them through that dysregulation. Now, like I said, sometimes kids, the train has left the station. Nothing you say, nothing you do is going to get them to calm. They have to go all the way through the dysregulation. This was especially true when I first started practicing this type of parenting with my son when he was 4, and he would have these crazy meltdowns that would last like 45 minutes, and he would be like around 4:00 in the afternoon. He was 4 years old. So he would just like rage around the house. He'd kick, he'd hit his brother. He was just like a Tasmanian devil. It was sort of insane. But what I noticed is that the minute I did not try to stop the big feeling cycle, when I began to just be a witness of it and make sure he was safe and that everyone was safe, but I wasn't coming at him with any big energy, those big feeling cycles decreased in intensity. So he was less active during them. They decreased in time, how long they lasted. And then they were almost eliminated within a week or two of me practicing the connection tool. It wasn't called that because I hadn't made it up yet. But just being in that compassionate witness space and just being like, I don't know what's going on here, but I'm just going to make sure this kid's safe and I'm going to let him get through this. And when I did that, he ended up going through the big feeling cycle faster and staying and having them less frequently. His whole nervous system reset. My whole family's nervous system reset once I started practicing this compassionate parenting and using connection. That took a lot out of me. I had to really practice my own self-regulation. And that's why I spend so much time on that topic of our own self-regulation, because to do this connection well, it does require you to be calm. Now, if you're not calm and your child is having a big emotion, I think about like the Hippocratic Oath, which should be like the parenting oath, is do no harm. Don't say anything. Don't get involved. You cannot parent angry, just like you can't connect angry. Like, nothing good comes from you when you're overwhelmed and angry. The type of parent you show up as is not the parent you want to be, and then you end up yelling, and then you have to repair, and it's just this whole thing. I'd rather you be silent and neutral as much as you can in the middle of a big feeling cycle than try to stop it. It's like trying to stop a train like a bullet train. You have to wait until the brakes can turn on, and then it takes still a long time for it to stop before it gets to the next station. So if you're able to be calm and a witness and, be in that compassionate space, great. If you're not, be a neutral witness. Just be like, I don't know, like it's somebody else's kid who's having this whole thing. And you're a little bit emotionally checked out, that's kind of fine because it's better than being emotionally activated. That reaction just it's like adding fuel to the fire, and it makes those big feelings bigger for your child, more intense. It makes them last longer. So this episode is a review again of the connection tool, reminding you how to notice what's going on with your kid, what's the circumstance, narrating how they're acting, why they might be acting that way, naming their emotion, validating the emotion, and then regulating, helping them figure out how to calm their body. So that's the connection tool. Notice, narrate, name, validate, regulate. That is the tool. And I wanted to do another episode on it just because I think it's one of the most important things I could ever teach you. And we've been talking about it the last couple of weeks. I also wanted to review it on this episode because next week I'm going to talk more about coaching your child. So thinking about after everybody is calm, and I kind of modeled it in this conversation a little bit, how to talk to your child about patterns in their behavior, how to talk to your child about ways that they're showing up that don't work, that you want to change, skills that are missing. So I'm going to talk to you about how to have those actual conversations with your kids that are outside of the emotion. So in the times when your kid is calm, you're calm, and you want to teach them or reflect on like what happened and why it didn't work. I want to give you a set of tools to have those conversations. Because I realize that in parent education, we don't really do a great job at talking about how to have these conversations with our kids about their behavior and kind of guiding them, parenting them ultimately to become more mature. You all do it as parents, but you're kind of like, is it a lecture? Are you monologuing? Are you like kind of shaming them a little bit? Like it kind of gets messy and confusing. So I want to clear that all up. I want to talk about how to teach your kids emotional regulation. I want to talk about how to teach your kids positive mindset. I want to talk about how to teach your kids how to be responsible, which means being honest, being on time, managing money, being safe, right? You have to have a lot of conversations with kids to teach them stuff. So I want to help you with those conversations, and we're going to call those coaching conversations. So over the next couple of weeks, I am going to walk you through a series of coaching conversations that are going to give you the tools you need so that you can teach your kids how to emotionally regulate long-term, how to have a good mindset long-term, how to be responsible long-term. This is like the crux of parenting. And I think as parents, we often don't know where and when we're supposed to do it, especially you're like, I'm being compassionate, I'm setting boundaries, I have consequences, but like, when do I do all the teaching? So we're going to do that. I'm going to talk to you about when do you do all the teaching, and it's in these coaching conversations. And I'm not teaching it today because I wanted to review once again that you cannot do a coaching conversation until your kid feels validated, until they are calm. So I wanted to review that again. So the connection tool is what you use kind of in an intervention state when your child is activated or there's like in the moment what's going on. The coaching conversations are more around prevention of behavior, how to guide your children towards new behaviors long term so that you don't have to have always intervention, short term. Coaching conversations are the big picture, the long-term interventions that you need to do so that your children grow in their skill set. So I think it's going to be really fun. It's going to be the next few episodes, pretty much all through May. I'm going to be walking you through all of those types of conversations. So it's really, really helpful, really handy. Be sure to listen every Thursday. And then in June, we'll start a little bit of a summer series to get you in that summer mindset and get you ready to, enjoy the time with your kids. Okay, so this week, keep practicing that connection tool. Keep being reflective and noticing this week, like notice the patterns. When do your kids get dysregulated? What are the most triggering times? When do you have the most big feeling cycles? What are they around? What are the circumstances? Because you're going to need to know those patterns in order to do these coaching conversations. So pay attention to that this week. And I will talk to you next week all about coaching conversations. Have a great week. Hey mama, if you enjoyed this podcast episode, I want to encourage you to do two things. The first is go to my website, calmmamacoaching.com, and get a copy of the Stop Yelling cheat sheet. You'll get a step-by-step breakdown of the most important tool I teach, which is the pause break. And you'll also get 40 ideas to reset your body and balance your nervous system so you don't have to yell at your kids. You can get a copy of that, again, at my website, calmmamacoaching.com/stop yelling. The other thing I'd love for you to do is go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review this podcast so that other moms can discover empowering and helpful, practical parenting strategies, just like you did today. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. It means a lot to be in your ear every week and to support you on your parenting journey.